Welcome back, 2019 Dallas International Film Festival. Thank you, David McFarland, for joining us. We are talking about Screwdriver, the feature film that you are the cinematographer for. So welcome to Dallas. We appreciate you traveling with the film and bringing it to us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I actually grew up in Dallas.
Oh, nice.
So I live in kind of between LA and New York right now.
Welcome
and have
home.
for a long time, but it's good to be here in Dallas, where I'm from.
Now, you guys premiered at Toronto, is that right?
Well, we premiered in North America at Toronto.
Toronto.
Actually world premiered at Venice.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I'd like to keep doing that. Venice was pretty good.
I would like you to also keep doing that. That would be my hope for you, definitely. All right, for the folks that can't join us here at the festival, if you can give us a little synopsis, spoiler-free synopsis of what we can expect to see in Screwdriver.
Yeah, no problem. Screwdriver, also known in the Arab world as Mafak, is a Palestinian film. Mm-hmm. It is the story of a young man named Ziad who, at an early age in his teens, makes a mistake, and as a result of this, spends 15 years in prison as a political prisoner in Israel. He's from the West Bank, and the movie really is about the process of him getting out of prison and reassimilating into the Al-Amari refugee camp where he's from, where he's hailed as a hero, but he doesn't feel so much like a hero. And it's a very intense film about isolation and identity and stress, post-traumatic stress.
Absolutely. So tell me where you guys shot this film. You were able to shoot it in Palestinian territory, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we made the film in the city of Ramallah, which is it's in the West Bank. It's about 4 kilometers away from Jerusalem, but inside occupied Palestine.
Wow. What was the climate there like? I've been able to visit Jerusalem very briefly, and it's a wonderful city, and the time that I spent with the Palestinian people, I found them to be so incredibly kind and hospitable and warm towards everyone. But the climate in Jerusalem can really change from day to day, hour to hour.
Certainly. It was a very interesting experience for me. This is a totally Palestinian film.
Sure.
I was one of 2 Americans that were there.
Wow.
We had another American, Rob Lopez, who was our assistant director, who came in from New York, and one of our producers, Srihari Sathe, is from India.
Wow.
But aside from that, it was 100% Palestinian. Bassam Jarbawi was the director and writer, and Yasmin Kodami is the producer and also plays a part in the film.
Wow.
But the climate there it's interesting. It's my first time spending time in the West Bank. I found it very fascinating. It can, as you mentioned accurately, I mean the climate can shift very quickly depending on if there's skirmishes can break out and uprisings can happen. But I was there for 3 months in the fall of 2017 making this film, and it was relatively quiet while we were there.
The time that I was there, it was completely calm.
Yeah, a few days after we wrapped, the announcement was made that the U.S. Embassy was going to move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and within hours, Ramallah erupted, and and many other places, but Ramallah, where I'm familiar, really erupted and got very violent.
Yeah, I'm not sure that people who haven't visited Jerusalem, and granted, I was there for such a short time, so I don't even really understand how delicate the balance of peace in that city, really throughout the entire, Israeli state, but particularly Jerusalem.
Well, yeah, I mean, what makes Jerusalem so interesting from my point of view is that it's really the forefront of so many religions, and they're all kind of right next to each other, so it can be a little tense, and that whole region is a pressure cooker. So yeah, things can get violent very quickly, and then quiet down and become very normal again.
Yes, like I said, all the people that I met are so wonderful. Very, very kind. So tell me a little bit about your director, Bassam. How did you get connected with him?
I came onto this project basically straight after making another film with the producer Srihari Sathe. We made a film called The Sweet Requiem in India in the spring of 2017. That's a Tibetan language film. And we had a good time making that film. It had a lot of challenges, but it was a good experience. I'm a very well-traveled cinematographer, and I guess my calling card is making films in kind of outside of the Hollywood system as it is right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. So after this experience shooting the Sweet Requiem, this film became greenlight. Screwdriver, it was possible that we were going to get it made. And Srihari thought that I might be a good fit, and he put Bassam and I together on just a Skype call. I read the script and really loved it.
Yeah.
I've always had a strong interest in Middle Eastern politics.
Sure.
I studied cinematography and anthropology, and the Middle East is something that I've been fascinated by, and the ripple effect that this conflict has throughout the planet.
Yeah.
It's really important, and it's really convoluted. It's very hard for me as a Westerner to understand it. So this is a really good opportunity for me to go explore and try and gain some perspective on it. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really happy I got the chance to shoot it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about shooting it. I was not trained as a cinematographer, so all the finer points are probably, I probably missed them, overlooked them, but it is beautiful. A lot of it is shot outdoors. I noticed a lot of, and I'm a symbolism person. I read something into almost everything, and I'm kind of like, look at all the contrasting black and gold, the dark and the light, the day and the night, that kind of thing is what I grab and run with. But tell me about your goals for it.
Well, I mean, with any film, my goal as a cinematographer is to create a subliminal language that helps helps urge the viewer into the emotion that the director wants, and translate what's on the page into a feeling. And so when I'm doing that, I mean, one of the reasons I had such a great time working on this film was Bassam and I really spoke the same language, and really immediately we only had a few days to prep this film.
Wow.
It was a really, really aggressive schedule.
Yeah, hit the ground running.
Yeah, but we, when we started shot listing, we immediately started talking in terms of grammar and language, in terms of the shot composition, the way the camera was going to move, and the lighting. And so, this is a very intense film, and it's really, our goal was to really put the viewer into the main character Ziad's perspective, which is a very, it can be surreal, and he doesn't know if what he's dealing with is accurate or not, and he's so for me it was a good chance to kind of flex the muscle of this subliminal language.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting. We had a short film that came this year, and just the complete opposite of Screwdriver in so many ways. It's very bright colors, focuses on a young woman. It stays mostly in one location, but it's a young woman who is moving through the aftermath of a sexual assault, and the viewer has, you kind of travel with her through the anxiety and the tension and the confusion surrounding it. I just think it's interesting that we're seem to be coming to a place where we're more willing and more able to portray mental health and mental trauma on screen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say that, our goal in this film was to really make the viewer feel what Ziad is feeling. And as we move through the second and third acts, I mean, it becomes a lot more tense. And so we used a lot of techniques, in the cinematography to help ramp that up. I mean, the lighting, I used very indigenous sources there. I used very hard light. I used a lot of sodium vapor and metal halide, and a lot of fluorescent things that were indigenous to the refugee camp, where we were shooting, and in Ramallah. And those colors, I would let them burn out. I would let the windows really burn out. I wanted to have a feeling of oppression in the lighting, to kind of mask the oppression that Ziad's feeling. We also photographed the film with really old Cooke S2 lenses that have a really a really minimal anti-flare coating.
I see.
So the light, when light hits the lens in a certain way, it really explodes. And so I was able to, as the camera operator on this film as well, I was able to really play with that and where I would position a light in the frame, and I was able to, hopefully like add a visual punctuation to the way Ziad's feeling via this anti coating, the anti-flare coating, or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of switching gears a little bit, talking a little bit more about the story of Ziad, who has been, as you mentioned, a political prisoner in Israeli territory for 15 years. But I remember at the very first film festival, my first Dallas Film Festival, I had a short filmmaker talking about her film, and she said, the more specific you make the situation and the story, the characters, the more universal the story becomes. And I thought that was Screwdriver. I was like, the PTSD stories, that resonates so much with American audiences, even though we feel like the situation itself, the literal situation, we don't have much connection to, or can often feel like we don't have much connection to. But especially the last 10 years, classmates of mine that came home from the war, it's become such a, not that we know how to deal with it because we don't, but it's hitting everyone.
Well, I think that, hopefully this is a film that resonates with people on a lot of levels. Mm-hmm. And one level, as you mentioned, I think correctly, is, that American audiences can hopefully relate to is the issue of post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. And, in this film, one thing that, this film is it's critical of the Palestinian authorities for not really having a structure in place to rehabilitate political prisoners and help them deal with their post-traumatic stress. And I feel like that's something that American audiences can really relate to, having been through 2 very long wars.
Yeah.
And, soldiers coming home, having lived through really, really horrific events, and not really having the resources to gain help from that. Yeah. And so I think that's definitely something that people can relate to. I think also this is a story about overcoming political strife as well, and there's plenty of that around the planet.
Yes.
So hopefully people can make a relation to their own personal experience within this film.
Yeah. Well, to switch gears again, we talked a little bit about is it pronounced Ramallah or Ramallah?
Well, it depends on. I say Ramallah, but
Ramallah.
If you're speaking Arabic.
Yeah. The refugee camp. What was kind of the? I'm always interested to find out how a community reacts to a film crew that is suddenly in their midst. Were the people? Did they feel confident in you being there? Were they welcoming?
It was really fascinating for me. As an American coming over into the West Bank, I wasn't exactly sure what the vibe was going to be like in terms of people reacting to me.
Sure.
Let alone being on a film set, But I will say this, because Bassam grew up in Ramallah, he has a very interesting story. Mm-hmm. He grew up in a UN refugee colony.
Wow.
That in Ramallah, and at an early age, around 13, I might be getting it wrong, a year or two here or there, but the second Intifada broke out in early 2000s, and Bassam, as a young teenager, just ran into the refugee camps with his camera and began a career as a photojournalist.
Wow.
And because he spent so much time in this camp, he got to know a lot of the people there. Mm-hmm. And then he went off and went to university, went to Columbia University and got his master's in film, wrote this script, set it in the Al-Amari refugee camp, which is right in the heart of Ramallah. And he then was able to gain access because of the relationships he had made in the second Intifada. Mm-hmm. So when I was hired and brought over, I feel like I was immediately welcomed into the camp. I had a really good experience. Mm-hmm. And I felt actually really safe and very comfortable. I spent a lot of time in the camp by myself, and I feel like a lot of Palestinians wouldn't necessarily go into this camp because it can be a bit dangerous.
Sure.
But I think that once the high-ups at the camp kind of spread the word about who Bassam is and who I am and what we're doing, I would say, pretty much everybody was down with what we were doing. Of course, there's some people that probably didn't understand, and some kids threw some rocks here and there. But I mean, it was nothing big. So I had a really good experience. And this is like, it's spending time in refugee camps is always a mixed emotion for me, because it can be it's a reminder of the life that I have over in the United States, which is very privileged, and it can be something that's very sad for me to experience, but at the same time, it can be very uplifting because you see a really positive human spirit prevailing. So, and that was my experience in Alamari.
Well, this is probably a weird question, but I've just become more concerned with it over the past few years. American travel can be very exploitative. The tourism industry in general can be, and you weren't there as a tourist, obviously. But I feel like we always need to be conscious of protecting the communities that we're going into. And so, I mean, were you guys able to accomplish that, kind of bringing, I don't want to say bringing business, that doesn't make sense, but bringing help, bringing awareness to the community rather than kind of using the territory and then moving on. Do you know what I'm getting at?
I do know what you're getting at. Well, I'll say this. I mean, this film is about awareness. So hopefully, by its existence, it will help people become aware of a lot of issues. For us as filmmakers, our production offices were in the refugee camp. We tried to keep the smallest footprint we could there. I mean, this was not, this was not a huge Hollywood film that comes in and rolls through a town.
Disruptive, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, inherently you disrupt things. I mean, it's hard.
Sure,
I mean, but we filmed in the camp for about 26 days. Our production offices were there. We hired, we got all of our food from there. I would say we spent a lot of money there. Or a lot of the money spent on this film was directed towards that. I mean, by design.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a lot of respect paid from the producers. It was set up in a way that respect was being paid to this community. So I felt good, and I feel like as a result of that, we were really welcomed into it.
Yeah. I just ask, here in Texas especially, we've had a debate going back and forth the past few years about film incentives. And something that filmmakers always try to say is, we want to bring good business. We want to give a boost to the local economy, not be exploitative towards the people and the community and their resources. So that's one of the things that always comes to mind when somebody shoots on location, especially internationally, that,
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's very important. I mean, I know that the West Bank and Palestine does not have a strong film industry.
No.
And so it was a nice feeling for me to see a lot of our crew people rising up and playing very important roles on what often was their first feature film. Not everybody. Some people had worked on films like Omar, but the people, most people were young in their careers, and so that was a good feeling, getting to kind of share some knowledge and just have these people make a film for themselves about their own struggle. It was very like endearing to me.
That's awesome. Well, one last thing before we go, what is the next step for Screwdriver? For people that couldn't join us here, where can they find out more about the film? Where can they check you out on social media?
That is a good question. I wish I had a great answer for it. We have a Facebook page.
There we go.
I don't know. I should be prepared for this. I'm just a cinematographer, though. Yeah, well...
It's an important role.
I know,
it's
it is.
It's an important role, David.
No, it's a very important role. I'm just not used to the PR side of it. Yeah, we have a Facebook page that's, I think, probably Screwdriver at facebook.com or something. And it's, it's playing around the world. It's playing a lot of festivals right now.
Great.
Yeah, it's playing kind of everywhere. But it's just starting to hit the United States. So I know it's part of the Human Rights Watch Film Festival, which is playing in D.C. in a couple weeks, and then it's playing in New York at Lincoln Center in June. Okay. So it's having a big theatrical run right now. Still waiting for a distributor because it's a politically driven film.
Sure.
You know, I think some people are a little, you know, I mean, I think it's going to find the right home, but it's like, you know, it's taking a moment.
That's okay.
Right.
Well, I think the Human Rights Watch Festival is probably a really good place for people to learn more about it.
It's very interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting, forum to be in, the Human Rights Festivals. I mean, it's amazing.
Awesome. Well, David, congratulations on the film. We hope to see you back in Dallas sometime.